Games to be sold, not told. So we finna keep everybody broke. They say time is money. They say money talk. I ain't got no time to waste if you ain't got no time. Out and about, out chasing paper. The streets of my house and the house always wins like Vegas. Never down for the count. Second win, second nature. Found mine. Never had my hands out. Fuck favors. By design, everything tailored. In my youth, it was shell toes, no Chuck Taylors. We choke game, how to have a game show. It's still the same code game, so it's still the same code. We all pay the cost, pay dues. Move with the mind state that I can't lose. On the grind, push a hard line with my linemen. Back when I was young, they said it's all about timing. Feel it's my time, all the stars are aligning. I'm a diamond in the rough, couple cuts got me shining. This game you cannot cop on consignment. In the field, all we do is execute assignments. The game's to be sold, not told. So we finna keep everybody broke. They say time is money, they say money talk. I ain't got no time to waste if you ain't got no time to talk. The game to be sold, not told. So we finna keep everybody broke. They say time is money, they say money talk. I ain't got no time to waste if you ain't got no time to talk.
First, we get into this paper. See, I want it all, plus some UNDERDOG acres, a lot of alcohol, few dad bags of paper. Run this shit like a ship and I'm the sailor. Cold, kinda like it's fresh up out the freezer. Cold, if she ain't talking bread, I don't need her. Soon as I meet her, I'm a fucker, then I leave her. It's the old Mac knees, treat them all like bottom feeders. Break it down slow for them folks that don't know. I'm a seasoned vet, black belt out the dojo. With a wide range of weapons, so I'm out the holster. Keeping all options open, so many ways that I can fold ya. Told you from the gate, never been about no play. Get it on the go, they never been known for no delay. The game should be sold, not to be told. Keep your mouth shut, don't have to break the mold. Mac knees.
Break the work down, it's fence the move. Push that work out, I distribute. Break the work down, it's fence the move. Push that work out, I just distribute. A young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping out the foreign or I'm hopping out the Uber. Crew clocking chips opposite of you losers. Can't be broke as a joker, got no sense of humor. Just a young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping out the foreign or I'm hopping out the Uber. Crew clocking chips opposite of you losers. Can't be broke as a joker, got no sense of humor.
I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. You know I'm the boy, get money's what I'm used to.
Keep you straight from the gate, so I don't confuse ya. I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. I'ma make noise, shout to my producer. I'm an entertainer, but I ain't here to amuse ya. Yeah, fuck with shooters and they all fucking users. Come through and wake that ass up like a rooster, hella early in the morning. Early bird gets a worm. Finna get rich for 'em, food for the worms. Cutting cocaine, dropping whole things. It's a cold game, make you run your gold chain. Hungry, but I'm moving in a keto state. For sure, I beat the price on the keys in your state. Catch me running up a tail, fucking up a bag. Make me wonder how long will a good thing last. On my Curtis Mayfield, live a life I can't chill. Push a man, pushing packs, all I do is make squeal. Keep it 100, I'm just numb, yo, I can't feel none of these suckers when they say they real. Stacking Uber cash, I'm an out-of-state supply. Random Uber man, he'll get away drive. Just a young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping out the foreign or I'm hopping out the Uber. Crew clocking chips opposite of you losers. Can't be broke as a joker, got no sense of humor. Just a young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Hammer in the building. What up, Hammer?
Feels so good to be back.
What up? What up?
I know I missed last week. I was
Yeah.
not only was I a little bit busy, but I was still feeling the effects of my Packers going down in defeat. I know that was a week ago. We just passed championship week, but I was feeling it, man. I know I didn't get a chance to talk about it last Tuesday, but yeah, it's good to be back.
We talked about it. You skipped out on it.
Nah, man, it just wasn't. I was so emotional, and like I said, I know this past week, I could imagine how Lions fans feel. You know what I mean? Going virtually through a similar situation where you felt like you were the better team. So it was definitely rough, but at the end of the day, definitely proud of my team. At the when it's all said and done, you can feel good about the future. But hell of an interesting championship week, I should say.
Yeah, very. We'll get talking into the games. And today we're going to be doing our quarterback rankings.
Yeah,
Tiers.
this
We
is gonna be spicy.
broke them down into tiers. It's going to be very spicy. Especially a little bit at the top because there's a lot of conversation around, 3, 4, 5, that whole area. So, I've got it broken down a certain way, but we'll kind of coincide together and
Yeah,
see what
buddy.
we can agree with and get going here. But in the meantime, I mean, spark up, relax for a little bit, ask some questions. We're here, rolling. Barry in the house, what up? Bogey in the house, what's goody? Isaac,
Bogey.
what up,
Forget
Isaac?
those
Lamar
forget those 49ers,
disappointed.
Bogey.
Yeah, those lucky ass motherfuckers. But Lamar disappointed. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're going up against Mahomes though. I mean,
No.
he definitely
Nope.
disappointed for sure. But
If
I mean,
you
that's what we always did anybody really expect them to win?
they were favored, bro, by 4.5 points at home.
Oh,
I
fuck
I
if they were
understand.
favored or not.
No. I understand there's so many factors that they're taking it into. Number one, obviously, Mahomes didn't have a great season, right? The receivers were dropping a ton of passes. Offensively, they weren't as good. They really, outside of Rashee Rice, who could you really count on? Obviously, Kelsey there, but that offense was completely different than what we've accustomed to having to see. And Baltimore was at home. Baltimore had probably a top 2 defense. You can argue 1 or 2, San Francisco, Cleveland, etc. Good defenses, but you couldn't tell me. And Lamar was playing really well. Like, he wasn't putting up gaudy statistics, but bro, Baltimore was averaging 28 points per game over the course of the entire season. They scored 10, dude. 10. You can't tell me that if you're the Baltimore Ravens or you're a Ravens fan and Kansas City only score 17, you don't expect Lamar to get you 20?
Well, I mean, it just feels like they didn't do what they do. Like they didn't run the football.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
why wouldn't you? Especially in a close game where it's not
Agreed.
relatively like
No.
high scoring. Like, why are we trying to?
It was never more than a 2-possession game. Never. The
You know,
entire game, it was never more than a 2-possession game.
yeah,
So
Zay Flowers made some mistakes, but they still, were right there.
Lamar threw the interception in the end zone. Zay Flowers fumbled it, obviously, in the end zone. So, but when it's all said and done, if Lamar Jackson, I think most people agree that he's going to win the MVP. If you're Lamar Jackson, you're the MVP. It falls on your shoulders. You got those. You got those legs like nobody else. Pause in the NFL where you could run, and I got to make sure I preface that now, but you're the best running quarterback in the NFL, like the most dynamic guy with his, using his legs to pick up yards and make plays and do all that stuff. You're telling me that if Lamar throws 40 times, I'm happy if I'm the Chiefs. If Lamar's throwing the football 40 times, I think he's a good thrower of the football. I don't think he's a great thrower of the football. And I think once the Chiefs went up by 14 points, they started feeling the pressure.
I mean, look, Baltimore's rushing. I mean, Gus Edwards,
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
carries. Justice Hill, 3 carries. Flowers, 2 carries. I mean,
How many
Hill's been
carries did
kind of
Lamar
the
have?
receiving back. He's kind of interesting for next year, Justice Hill
Lamar,
being
8
the kind of
carries.
receiving back now.
Yeah, bro, they just, like you said, they went away from their identity, and I think Russell chimed in as well. And most people agree, right? That the statistics are proven right there. Lamar shouldn't be throwing it 37 times. Lamar should be throwing it 25, most, and there should be 35 rushes.
Andrew's just coming back kind of too.
No, that still means nothing to me, honestly. I understand Andrew's coming back. You want to get him the ball a little bit. He only had 2 targets. Nah, nope.
Well, what I'm saying is a healthy Mark Andrews. I mean,
maybe you can make that argument, but at the same time, nope. You're Lamar. You're at home in the AFC Championship game with a defense that's playing, historically well over the past decade, and the Chiefs only get 17. And you're Lamar Jackson at home. You can't get me 20. That's on Lamar all the way around.
Oh, for sure.
You could throw the offensive coordinator in there.
Yeah, I guess you could do that too. And then going to the other side, like what we've been waiting for Kelsey all season for fantasy purposes. Now he decides to,
maybe he's healthier.
Maybe exactly. Maybe he's healthier now. He's kind of been lingering all season, with injuries. So, Pacheco gets the ball 24 times on the ground. I mean,
I like that though. They controlled it.
That was good. They didn't need to do much else.
The one thing we've learned in these playoff games is the turnovers are magnified.
And you can't beat Patrick Mahomes.
The turnovers are magnified, right? Patrick Mahomes is supposed to lose. People thought Miami actually had a chance. I never thought that, playing in Kansas City. But Buffalo, right? Was he supposed to go on the road and beat Buffalo?
Well,
in Buffalo?
You know what Buffalo reminds me of? Buffalo reminds me of the NBA version of LeBron versus Toronto, where Toronto just could not get past him and just lost to them every single year. But they had pretty much like the best record. They were really good and just couldn't get past them. And that's the Bills are just facing this Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and they had the home field this time. They just can't get over the damn hump.
No, listen, that Bills game, and I know I didn't get a chance to talk about the divisional games, and I don't want to go too crazy into it because I'm sure you covered it, whatever. But the Bills played well. Like, the Bills played well enough to win that game. The Chiefs just have Mahomes. It's that simple, right? They have Mahomes and Kelsey, and credit to Rashee Rice, man. He's really emerged. Not only was he fantastic in the regular season, but he's carried that over a little bit here into the playoffs. I know he had a solid game, 8 grabs on 9 targets for 46. Obviously, it was the Travis Kelce show, but I think they found a nice player to add with Rashee Rice, for Kansas City. But listen, like you said, Kansas City has Mahomes, nobody else does, and that gives him a shot to win the Super Bowl every single year.
I mean, we don't need Tyreek Hill. It's all right. We just go out and win the Super Bowl.
It's ridiculous.
You know what? We don't need Juju either. We're going to still get to the Super Bowl.
MVS is making contested catches now in the playoffs all of a sudden. Like, what?
MVS, what a waste.
Right.
But had the one big catch, that one clutch catch.
That's all it takes.
That's all they needed. But they do desperately need some kind of fucking outside wide receiver. He can't throw the ball like outside the numbers.
Yeah.
Or even downfield at that. But Bogart's secret girlfriend. What would you offer to the Bears from the drop of number 18? Not 18. We have 11. We have 11, I believe. Yes, we have pick 11. So it's going to cost a fucking arm and leg if we want to get all the way up to 1.
Oh,
I don't know necessarily if we need to go to 1. Like, we don't know what Chicago's going to want to do, but do they move back? I mean, but who else would trade us? Like, Washington needs a QB. New England needs a QB. I mean,
Arizona at 4?
Washington decides to go with some kind of they can't even really go. Like, Kirk ain't going back to Washington, right? I mean, because there's talks of us moving up to get like a Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, but that's gonna cost you future capital.
We gotta do what we gotta do if we have a chance to get somebody. I think Kirk is asking for like 2 years, 90 mil or something like that.
That's crazy. Coming off the injury.
Chasers, what up, Chasers? It was a good season. Yeah, it was definitely a good season. Mahomes doesn't look good. Dink and duck offense because he's got to deal with what he's got. They don't have anybody really to take over, to take over the top. Like, they have nobody to stretch the defense like Cheetah did. Right. So even last year they changed it to more of a dink and dunk. He just has to do what he has to do because they're playing that deep cover too. where or they're playing some kind of zone where he's got no choice. That's like why Rashid Rice has been awesome. Like there's a lot of zone that's being played against him. Rashid Rice is just finding those spots and sitting in them, and Mahomes is extending plays and then being able to find guys.
And give Mahomes credit because he's made the adjustment, right? Without Tyreek Hill, like the numbers aren't as gaudy fantasy wise. I think he was QB8 this year, So give Mahomes and Andy Reid a ton of credit by being able to adjust and say, hey, Mahomes, you don't have to make every Superman play, right? Because that defense is fantastic all of a sudden. So Mahomes goes out there, he gets you 17 and you win. Like 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. Mahomes had to put up 30 plus on a regular basis for them to win. So the combination of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes has really done a nice job adjusting to the players that they have and what they have to do to go win games. Hey, Mahomes, go get us 17-20. Our defense can hold them to 17 or less, and we're going to win games. And they're in the Super Bowl for the 4th time in 5 years.
Jamie, what up, Jamie? Yeah, and they're able to run the ball for once and forever. Like they haven't had a defense or run game really. So
yep.
How many passes Mahomes last year or touchdown passes did he have from really close? Inside the 5-10 yard line, there was a ton. So McManus missed everything that 1 week. I needed 5 points. Oh fuck. Yeah, definitely should have ran Lamar more.
Don't get me started about kicking because I've had it with kicking this year.
There's Russell says the same thing. 12 rushing plays all game. Yep.
Right. It's crazy.
Crispy in the building. What up, Crispy? Yeah, I mean, for fantasy purposes, Lamar is fine. I mean, I'm not worried about him in that case. And they're not going out and getting anybody better either. So it is what it is. They're going to have Lamar.
He's got the bag. They've got a good team. They'll probably be in the AFC Championship, game next year somewhere around that divisional. They're going to be really good again. It's just, same questions we have about Buffalo. Can you get over Patrick Mahomes? Like, can you overcome him and Andy Reid and the combination of what they're putting out there?
Yeah, that's true too. Huss says, that fumble at that half-yard line that Snead made. I mean, if they get a touchdown there, I mean, are we talking differently? It's a whole different game, right? So,
and if you remember, Zay Flowers had that taunting penalty before on that drive. So Snead had a little extra motivation
and then went ahead and made the
play. And then went ahead and made the play. So you can look at every single playoff game and break it down to a few plays that are, that can decide the game, especially turnover worthy plays. So I definitely agree with that.
Sure. Swift been riding Kelsey on top to save his legs for the playoffs.
That Jamie, that's smooth, Jamie. That sounds like a Diaz. That sounds like something Diaz would say.
Tony turmoil. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Tony now. I mean,
bunch of nothing. Inactive.
Literally like droppable at this point. I mean, he ain't getting nothing from him. No. Russell said it's all coaching. Ravens played right in Steve Spag's hands. If you don't run the ball, you can't draw the safeties up. Yeah. Press coach on the receivers, let him blitz Lamar all game. Ravens made the game about Lamar versus Mahomes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. For sure.
For sure.
You don't want Caleb to throw to Addison? I mean, I would say JJ. I wouldn't highlight Addison, but yeah, I mean, that'd be nice. I mean, Caleb said the Vikings are one of the teams he'd want to play for, but are we willing to go give up the capital? I mean, at this point, you can say like maybe we are. Like we do have a young team. We got Hawkinson, we got Addison, we got JJ. Defense played a lot better this year. I mean, do we want to go out and get a rookie quarterback? I mean, only problem with that is they've got to learn the system, right? Kirk was playing better, like had one of his best years, like pretty much he was having before he got injured. So, do you want to run it back with Kirk for 2 more years and say, hey, like we know we're contenders, like when we have Kirk, or do we just say maybe there's not much of a difference between Kirk and Caleb or Jaden Daniels, because of all the talent that we have on offense?
I think my biggest issue with that is that they are such a veteran team, from the core players standpoint. To ask a rookie to come in there and get you over the top seems like a lot. So I don't know how feasible that is, on top of what you said was how much capital we're going to have to get to give up. Forget number 1, right? How about moving up to 2 or 3? Because all 3 of those teams most likely need a quarterback. Obviously, the Bears are a little more interesting with Justin Fields, so there's some, there's some play there. But the 2 or the 3 don't seem like options, just because Washington and New England seem like they desperately need a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if we would go up and pick 1, like, that's from Chicago.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if we go up to 1. Maybe we wait to see what Chicago does, and then maybe we make a move from there, depending what they do. Because if Washington and if Chicago doesn't go QB, and then Washington and New England go QB, that still leaves us with 1. Or do we stay put and re-sign Kirk and then draft like a Penix or a McCarthy? I don't know if they're going to go that high in the draft, but I don't know if we can wait till the second round, and then just kind of have him sit, and then have him sit a year or 2, because those are, I mean, guys that need some kind of work anyway. So
right,
that'd be interesting as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the more realistic option is kind of what you said, where if you could get Chicago's pick at 9 or something like that, and get a quarterback that you can afford to sit 2 years, maybe, right? Have Kirk in there for 2 years, have a rookie on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
That's the more realistic option than going up to 1.
I don't know if we would even want to move up to 9. Like, I don't think the Jets are going to take a QB at 10. Like I said, I don't know if Penix and McCarthy are going to go that high. Like, they could, but I don't know. There's got to be one of the 3 big dogs. Otherwise, we wait until, maybe we move up, in the back end of the first, if there's still the QBs available, or the second round, maybe we make sure we grab one of those guys and then re-sign Kirk. So,
right. So the mock draft on ESPN, or not ESPN, this is, I think, ESPN Jace, has the Vikings at 11 taking an edge rusher, and then JJ McCarthy going 12 to the Broncos. So that's interesting.
Seeing one where, we take Penix at 11, and then Denver takes McCarthy at 12. I mean, there's still so much time. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know if these guys are going to be first round. I mean, from watching that, like, everybody pretty much watched that championship game, right? I mean, Penix didn't look awesome, and McCarthy fucking barely threw the ball. So I don't know. The Giants are interesting, because the Giants, you've got Arizona, and we don't know what's going to happen up top, but you've got, right, Marvin Harrison's going to go pretty much in the top 4. Do the Chargers grab like a Neighbors, or do they grab a Bowers, or do the Giants grab Neighbors? Like, there's a few different, there's a few creeping up as well. Like, does Tennessee grab fucking a Neighbors? Who knows how long he's going to last? I mean, it depends what these teams are going to do up here, but I mean, we could have 2 wide receivers in the top 10, in the top 5, possibly.
Yep, depending on what the Chargers do at 5, I think is the real. That's when you'll start to see the dominoes drop. If they draft Neighbors, then Bowers might, Bowers has that would be an interesting situation. Do they flip flop? Right now, I see Chargers taking Bowers, and then it has the Giants at 6 taking Neighbors, which I kind of like that, to be honest with you. They need a guy out there catching passes, right, from Daniel Jones next season. Them LSU receivers, boy, they're pretty good.
Move up to 1, if anything.
Well, it depends, because I think the team, it could be Washington or New England, because they have the 2 and the 3 respectively. So it wouldn't, it still takes some more on top of that. But those are the teams that could possibly move up to 1 to get, if they really want Caleb. You could see Washington trading with the Bears. Washington trading, obviously, the Bears would go to 2, and then Washington would add maybe a third on top of it, something like that. So, those are the teams that make the most sense and have the ammunition with the current 2 and 3 picks, respectively, Washington and New England. But crazier things have been done, right? Carolina last year, right? So,
I mean, we've got Kirk basically that would be available, Russ, right?
Jimmy
You've
G.
got Atlanta that could.
You would imagine.
Atlanta has got to sign somebody.
Or draft. They're at 8. Atlanta's a sneaky team to be mindful of to move up because they already have pretty much all the other skill positions in place. So if they give up the 8th pick and a couple of picks next year, a number 1 next year and a 3 this year, some combination of picks, like the Atlanta could be a real interesting team to move up into that top 3 and say, fuck it, we're just going to grab a young quarterback with our young skill position players to begin with, a very solid defense, a pretty solid O-line, and then go from there. So I think Atlanta could be an interesting play.
Then Chicago would have the 8-9.
Plus whatever they get on top of Atlanta, they're probably going to get their 1 next year.
Really great defense. Baltimore could win a title with Trent Dilfer. Yeah. We've seen numerous okay or not really good QB. I mean, we talk about Mark Sanchez all the time. Well,
hold on.
You can ride a good D, but
I got it. Well, whoa.
Pause.
Whoa. Clip it. That is gold. Clip that bitch. We got him.
Shit.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I mean,
what I was just gonna say really quick about Bo Sox Forever's comment is, over the last essentially decade and a half, what okay quarterback has won? Nick Foles comes to mind, but outside of that, you need an elite quarterback in today's game to go out and win the Super Bowl. Now, Brock Purdy, you can make the argument he's in the Super Bowl. Certain guy like Jimmy G got to a Super Bowl, but to actually win it, you need those elite quarterbacks. You know what I mean? So for the most part, I know Eli Manning had a little bit of a run there in the late 2000s. But outside of that, right, you're talking Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, like those are the guys you need to be able to get the big one, bring it home.
Odunze neighbors. Yeah, if Odunze goes that high too, I mean,
so they have Odunze going to the Bears at 9, which I think is very, very interesting on this particular mock draft.
It could be. Tennessee could go after wide receiver too. There's a few teams there.
Yeah.
Drake May. I like Drake May, but Jaden Daniels has got that rushing upside where, they're saying Lamar, the next Lamar Jackson type. I mean, he even threw though, what? What do you have, 40 tutties last year? I think to 5 picks or something like that.
40 to 4. Yep.
And if you look at his, I don't have it pulled up right here, but if you look at do you have his stats pulled up there? The last 3 years, he's gotten better every single year. He's done better and gotten better every single year. So you see the progression there as well.
So he went from to your point. 2 years ago, he had 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2381 passing yards. Last year, you kind of saw a little bit of what he could do, where he had 2,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. And then last year, obviously, 3,800 yards, 40 touchdowns, 4 picks. I think a big thing for NFL scouts is protect the ball, right? If you could protect the football and not turn it over, and you're super athletic on top of it, that's why he's projected to go in the top 3.
Which, I do like May, but he'd be my QB 3 right now. I'd have to put Daniels ahead of him. But May could sling the ball. I mean, he's a big guy. He's not small in any sense. So
6'4", 230.
Yeah. So I mean, I like him. I think if he finds himself in a good situation, he could be good. I mean, he didn't play as good this year as he did in 22, right? 38 tutties. and then this past year went to 24. And you saw a little bit of comeback with Caleb Williams as well, where his last season wasn't as good as the year before.
Yeah, for sure. But to be honest with you, these guys are virtually going in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think Caleb is going to go number 1, but between May and Daniels, I think we had some similar things with Stroud and Bryce Young last year, right? Like, which guy do you like? What style, et cetera, et cetera. So we had that same conversation. And if you remember, I said I like Stroud, and you could go back and look at some of the older videos we did. I said I like Stroud over Bryce Young just because of the size, the arm strength, like the rushing upside. I didn't really factor in. Bryce Young really doesn't run a ton. He's a tiny, a smaller type guy anyway. But I just liked, I like CJ Stroud's profile a little bit more than I liked Bryce Young's. Now, to be fair, CJ Stroud went to a pretty solid situation as it turned out. We didn't think it would be that way, but yeah, I think listen, like you've been saying this for a while. It's a crapshoot, right? Like we don't know how these guys are going to turn out, and the situation matters that they go to.
And I still do like Bryce Young. I think he's a very good kind of guy that you can get late, where you don't got to pay much, or you could draft him late enough where, if he pans out, he pans out. But yeah, I mean, the situation obviously sucked, but
yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens where they get drafted. It's more of a Stroud, B.S. Richardson for the May versus Stroud Richardson. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're talking, prototypes and stuff like that, then I would agree with that.
Let's see if I could get into these.
But Jaden Daniels isn't a small dude. He's
6'4". No, he's not. 10. He's not. Yeah, he's not. He's big.
Yeah. So Caleb is the smallest guy out of those 3 for the most part.
But he's the most like electric and
pro ready.
I want to say like Patrick Mahomes-esque type, where like he can make any throw, extend plays.
Yeah, this will be an interesting draft. To be honest with you, like, bro, the draft is only 3 months away, only 90 days away. Like that 90 days is going to go by pretty fucking quick. We're heading into February pretty soon, so I'm excited.
We'll start going over rookies soon. We'll do some rookie drafts. I think next week maybe we'll do a startup draft, not a whole draft, but like maybe the first
starters
4 rounds, maybe 5 rounds, like just something short, because everybody's doing startups right now. So just to get an idea of kind of where things are, get situated with the market, where guys are going. Because there's been a lot of startups now. And they've actually got some. They don't have all of the rookies in there. Like they've got Caleb in there. They've got Marvin.
I've seen them. Yep.
Now, if you are doing startups, like I don't recommend to use the rookies like as you can pick them. I would just do the rookie draft. So just use kickers as the picks and just do 101, 102, 102. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. Without the draft here and all that kind of stuff yet, we don't know much. So, and there's still some guys that are not actually on there, depending how deep, your league is. But, oh man, hold on. Let me see if I could do this another way.
It looked good the way you had it.
Yeah, but I didn't want the whole. There we go. The whole upper part to come out. But yeah, let's talk QBs, because now like we're in startup season. Where are guys? Where do we see guys at? Especially super flex leagues. How are we kind of tiering them? Who do we like? Who don't we like? Who we taking chances on? So let's start getting into some of that.
Like it.
Boxer said month ago traded the 110, 112 for Jordan Love. Hope he's going to keep playing at this high level. That's too late first. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that.
Oh, yeah. I'll be interested to see where you have Jordan Love here. I'm very interested to see.
Well, you saw my rankings.
I did.
Hasn't really changed, but I'm okay. We'll talk about it. But 4:20 a.m. What do you want the Vikings to draft a running back? I mean, sure, we need a running back, but I mean, there's not any great running backs coming out in this class, but maybe there are guys that are going to be part of more like committees. Like there's not really a
Yep.
I don't know if there's
A
necessarily a
Saquon,
guy that's going to be
a
a main. No,
Bijan,
there's definitely
yeah.
not one of those.
Right.
Maybe Braylon Allen is a guy that can take on like a 3-down role, but that's probably not going to happen either. So Jonathan Brooks is actually the interesting one. That's the one guy who could, but he tore his knee up. So it's gonna be interesting to see where he gets drafted or what happens in this process, because there's a lot of guys that we like now, right, or have done really well in college.
And a
But
lot
we
can
saw it
change.
last year,
Yep.
where once we get to the draft, there's guys that things come up on physicals. Jonathan Brooks is one of those guys with the ACL now. There's things that come up with injuries and all this kind of stuff. We saw Sean Tucker was a top 5 guy, and then all of a sudden he had heart problems, and he couldn't even go to the combine and wound up undrafted and going to Tampa. So there's a lot that's going to change between that.
Oh, bro, 90 days is forever in terms of things that can happen. So, yeah, long way to go.
CMC's brother, that's right. CMC's brother, Luke. They don't have guys like Schrader. Yeah, they're missing a couple guys. Yeah, Drake May's size is good, so one of those bigger dudes. Brooks put up the same type of numbers as Bijan before he got hurt. Yeah, Brooks was awesome. Brooks is he's basically my number 1 guy right now. I mean, it just sucks obviously with the injury, so some people might not have him as their first, but he's the one guy that kind of stands out from kind of the rest, because they're all kind of they're going to be going somewhere where they'll be getting a role, but I don't think there's anybody that's going to come out and be, like you said, a Saquon-ish or anything like that. So relevant at least week 8. All right. So you don't have to rush him back. I mean, he is young though, right? I think he's only, what is he, like 20?
I didn't see him here.
Yeah, 20. So that's a good sign.
What's funny about that? They have him going in the 2nd round to the Packers in this mock draft.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah. See that? I can see that.
I think AJ Dillon might be gone, so that's not a bad pickup in the 2nd round.
No, not at all. Song said he traded. All right, Song, what you got? You traded for CD. You gave up Kyron, Achan, the 105 and the 405.
It's a lot, but you're getting that. You're getting the hammer. You're getting the hammer.
That's what it costs. And you're trading 2 running backs, which I love. I like that.
2 guys on our sell high list.
That's true. And the 105, that's, it's tough with that, but you're getting
potential wide receiver guy, 1.
Yeah. The only other thing I would say is, because I don't know what the rest of your team looks like, is like, what else could you have done with necessarily the
not
or Kyron or Achan? Like, could you have got
splitting that?
Could you have got
like a tier down?
Yeah, maybe 1 tier down from that.
And kept the 105.
And then been able to keep the 105 and have that flexibility to take a QB or, a Neighbors or an Odunze or, whoever's there at the 105, because you'll just have some more flexibility. But like, if you have other good players, and I'm sure Kyron, you picked them up off, picked them off of waivers most likely, or just had him on your bench. So he was really, he didn't really cost you much. So, the trade I'm absolutely fine with. I like it. I'll take CD. AJ Dillon to the Ravens, yeah.
He could go anywhere. I don't care.
I wanted to see what Saquon goes, and we'll talk about that when we do the running back rankings. But Saquon's an interesting one. Like, Texans and Ravens are like really interesting that I think I like for him.
There's an interesting
Gibson's for running backs. Okay. Yeah, you're good.
There's an interesting running back free agent class coming up with Josh Jacobs, right? Derrick Henry still chugging along. So this running back crop for free agency is pretty interesting.
Bro. But yeah, Songs, I like that song, because you have other running backs that you can play, and you've now, transferred over that value that's so kind of volatile and moved it to a top wide receiver, arguably the number 2 wide receiver. So Barkley to the Cowgirls.
Yeah, I mean, Barkley to the Ravens.
Yeah, I like that.
I
like that.
Ridiculous.
All right, let's talk QBs here. So, tier 1, number 1. I mean, I've got Josh Allen. You can make the argument for Patrick Mahomes, I think, as well. And I've had Mahomes up there for a while now. But I mean, last 3 seasons, 4 seasons, Josh Allen has been pretty much QB1. That DeMar Hamlin game is the only reason why he wasn't QB1, I think, last year. So, and he can throw the football as well. He's not just a rusher. He can throw the football as well. So I think the longevity for him, I like. And then I've got Patrick Mahomes at 2. And I think that's pretty much the consensus. But what do you think about 1, 2 right there? Do you have anything different? Or do you think maybe there's an argument to be made to have somebody else there?
As much as I would like to argue Mahomes over Josh Allen, there's a large enough sample size that I don't have an argument. So that's why I'm not going to argue that. So yeah, I have no problem with that. And also, listen, you know, the Kansas City team, like I stated earlier, they've gone through kind of like a metamorphosis where they're not this explosive offense anymore. But that doesn't mean Patrick Mahomes is not an amazing quarterback. You don't want him as your, you know, your dynasty QB1. But Josh Allen is the superior fantasy player at this point and going down the line potentially as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but Mahomes for me, I mean, solidified at least at 2. I can't put him
For
down
sure.
any further
For
than that.
sure.
I mean, we've seen this guy throw, 50 touchdowns. Like,
That was with Tyreek Hill and a young Travis Kelce. So
listen, it was, but where's he at? Let me go to his. And then we've seen him without that finish as literally QB1, which was last year, who threw 41 tutties, 45 tutties altogether. So I mean, yeah, it was a long time ago, 50, but he's hitting 40 tutties pretty much consistently. Obviously not this season, but there's a lot of obviously reasons for that, not to make excuses, but for me, I think he's a great buy low, especially right now. Like if people putting him on the block, like if you can get Mahomes for cheaper just because he had one
there's a
downish
value there.
season,
There's some value to be had there to go buy him. I agree.
for sure. For sure. Jamie, I feel you on the Josh Allen with the rushing, but like he can throw the ball at 2, so I don't necessarily think he has to rely on the rushing.
And also, just really quick to touch on that before you continue, I think it's a little bit different with Josh Allen because of his build, right? He's not Lamar, he's not Kyler Murray, he's not Michael Vick. He's a bigger, stronger dude. So I don't worry as much about the rushing as I do, because even when they're down by the goal line, bro, he's a fullback down by the goal line. So that's still, that value is going to hold. You know what I mean?
And he hasn't like been injured or been getting
No,
injured,
not
so it's
terribly.
you
No,
can still feel pretty safe with Josh Allen.
I agree.
Now this is where it gets tricky. This is where the conversations start happening. So
Yep.
for me, I kind of have one more guy in this tier. Where is he at? And for me, it's still Jalen Hurts, and I know that he's fallen down rankings, and I know that people are, maybe worried about Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts, I mean, QB9, QB3, QB2 this year on what you can say was a down year. Like things just weren't necessarily great, but still finishes as QB2. He's got the contract still, and
Yep.
he's 25 years old. So for me,
Yep.
he's still safe. He's still a top 3 guy for me. And that kind of closes off my first tier. But we can make arguments to have other guys in this tier, I think, kind of as well. But what do you think? And, do you have Jalen Hurts there, or is that kind of different for you now, barring this past
No,
season?
no, I think that's actually a good thing that we saw him have a down year and still finish as QB2. I think that's more of a positive than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, they lost both of their coordinators, right? They lost their offensive coordinator after the Super Bowl run. So that is bound to happen. Now, the one thing that does concern me is AJ Brown not playing in the playoff game. There seems to be some weird dynamic going on there. Remember, 2 months ago, he was going on a historic run of 150-yard game, or 3 months ago, he was on a historic run of 150-yard game. So to kind of see that collapse, happening, and then obviously some issues with the coach, the head coach, Sirianni, it's a little concerning. But from an overall standpoint, because he has the contract, because he has a good nucleus around him now, his offensive line might be a little bit of an issue. I don't know if Jason Kelsey is retiring. That's a big part of how you could feel about Jalen Hurts. Now, we tend to not mention the offensive lines as much, but I think with Jalen Hurts, the offensive line does matter, because obviously that tush push, and just his style of play. So I still feel comfortable with Jalen Hurts as 3, but I do have another guy in this tier. Exactly.
Before you go into that, I just want to say one more thing about the tush push, because even if they do take that away, they're just going to QB sneak it. Like, he's still a big enough dude. Like, they're just going to QB sneak it in. So I'm not necessarily concerned about the tush push, because I know that somebody might bring it up in the comments. But that's kind of what I think about it, is they'll just kind of QB sneak it anyway. So
yeah.
But yeah, all right. So do you have another guy in this tier? Because I know we could definitely make an argument for definitely another guy in this tier. And I think that, a lot of people are going to want to have him in this tier. But go ahead. Who is that?
Joe Burrow, man.
I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that, actually. But go ahead.
No, it's Joe Burrow. And there's just even last year, right before the injury, and I will say this, Joe Burrow's my guy. He let a lot of people down this year. But right before he got hurt, you started to see who the fuck he really is. And he's a guy that can put you on his shoulders and take you places. And that, for me, setting the injury aside for this particular conversation, seeing what Joe Burrow can do, he can carry your team. He can be a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen. He's a needle mover. And for me, that solidifies him in this one spot. He is at the back end of it, just because of the health concerns over the last couple of years. And then obviously T. Higgins' free agency looms pretty large, right? What are they going to do at the running back position? But I just think Joe Burrow's so amazing, and he's been able to really show that he can carry a team and move a needle, especially your fantasy team, when he's right and he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, 2021, 4,600 yards, 36 overall tutties, finishes as QB7. 2022 finishes as QB4, 4,500 yards on 41 total tutties. So, he's up there in the high 30s of touchdowns, in the 40 range. So, for me, that's why I kind of have to have him up there. Like, yeah, he had the injury concerns, but, for us that play in these super flex leagues, like, these are advantages that we have now, because now, number one, they're becoming available where they never were available like that before, all just because of one injury that happened in one season. And now you kind of have the flexibility almost in the top end of the draft, where, like, Burrow is falling, Jalen Hurts is falling right now. CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, these guys are getting drafted before these guys. So if you have, like,
Justin Herbert, you could throw in there,
104 in your startups, right? Do you have an opportunity now to say, hey, maybe I can move back? Who really wants CJ Stroud right over here? I'll take Joe Burrow a couple picks later, and be able to get assets on top of that. So I think that's what really makes it interesting in startups, like right now as we speak, because once we get to the season is almost starting. I think at that point, like, Burrow will be moving up and Hurts will be moving up as kind of we get more stories and more clarification on what's happening. But as of right now, CJ Stroud is a guy that people have up here in this top tier. I mean, for me, I had Burrow starting off the second tier, but I'm okay with him up there. But if he's going to be up there, then I think you got to put Stroud up there. Because I would have Burrow and Stroud here basically on the second level here. But if we're going to leave him up there, then I got to put Stroud, because I think Stroud is kind of right there, almost on that level. I can't put him over Joe Burrow yet. People have done that already. But what do you have? 4,100 yards, I believe, about 23 tutties for CJ Stroud. wind up missing 2 or 3 games, so could have been in that 30-tutty range, but wait till he gets up there into that 40 range like Joe Burrow can. But CJ Stroud is extremely young, so I'm okay if you want to have CJ Stroud over Joe Burrow. They're more like 4A, 4B for me. Either or, you can go with either one. But Burrow's been the guy that's proven so far, and he's got an elite wide receiver in Jamar Chase. So, you can always kind of feel comfortable, I think, with Joe Burrow. And like you said, once we saw the middle of the season, once he got healthy, he had a string of games where he was just slinging it. So, yeah, if we're gonna put Burrow up there, let's just throw Stroud up there too. Fuck it, right? Let's throw Stroud up there too.
The thing with Stroud is obviously you want to see it outside of one season, but the thing that gives me, and I've always loved CJ Stroud. And like I said before, I thought he was the best quarterback coming out of last year's draft, even over Anthony Richardson. But that sophomore slump can be a little bit of a real thing in terms of now there's a full season of tape on you. Is he going to make the adjustment? Like those are all just general questions for any, first year quarterback that played particularly well. The thing that excites me the most about CJ Stroud is his ability to take care of the football, right? Mm-hmm. He went for a ridiculous stretch. I think he has the most passes to begin his career without an interception, and he only finished with 5 interceptions on 500 attempts in his first season. He did only play 15 games, so he did miss 2, but that for me, that's something that I take into account in terms of this young of a guy being able to protect the football at that high of a rate. You think he's only going to get much better with his decision making and kind of, taking care of the football. So the interception rate is something that I paid attention as far as CJ Stroud. The numbers, the yardage, the touchdown, that's all fine and dandy. I just love that he was able to protect the ball at an elite level.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, let us know what you think about like this first tier here. Where is the cutoff for you? What do you have as far as are you shuffling these guys? Do you have Stroud up higher? Do you have Burrow up higher?
I do think though, if like I think Burrow and Stroud, if you're gonna put Stroud in there, that is, I'm comfortable with that tier 2 thing the way you had it, because I think the other 3 guys have separated themselves in terms of consistency, rushing upside, and Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. So the way you had it made more sense. I still think Joe Burrow is elite of the elite, but I understand why you kind of tiered it the way you did.
Yes, I have them basically like just leading off the second tier, but that's fine if people want to have them in that first tier too, because I think those are like the almost, at least for me, they're like solidified as the top 5 guys. And you can argue Lamar Jackson in there, 4-point passing touchdown or 6-point passing touchdown, right? That makes a difference as well. 1 QB leagues or super flex leagues, obviously that makes a difference as well. We're talking from a super flex perspective here, because I think in 1 QB, you kind of put Lamar up higher, you put A-Rich up higher, right? Because those are guys where, you're aiming for that upside and you can still have a second QB that's pretty good in 1 QB league. So a little bit different going there. So my next guy, speaking of, and we just kind of talked about him, is going to be Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson would be the next guy up for me. So that would be pretty much my top 6 there. Lamar's been awesome, and when he's healthy, he's got to stay healthy. He seemed to stay healthy this year, and I think I talked about it earlier in the season where he kind of just feels like he's trying to be a lot safer, trying to not get hurt. The way he's running the football and getting down or out of bounds, he's not even running full speed most of the time. It just looks like he's trying to be very much aware of his surroundings and trying to not get hurt. And he's, done better passing the football. Hopefully Andrews is back to his normal self coming next season, because Mark Andrews has been, we've seen some killer seasons from Mark Andrews. So hopefully he can stay healthy, but I've got Lamar here as my next guy up in this tier. Would you have Lamar there as well, or would there be someone else you throw in here?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to argue with Lamar. I think the season that he had, right, the numbers don't necessarily blow you away, right? 3,600 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The rushing wasn't, by his standards, right, by Lamar's standards, the rushing wasn't overwhelming either, right? 820 yards, 5 touchdowns. His yards per carry, though, interestingly enough, are 5.5, which is down. He's usually in that high 6s, close to 7 range, and I think that's kind of what you're alluding to is he'd rather play all 17 games and average 5.5 than play 12 games and average 7 yards a carry. Right. So that kind of alludes to exactly what you're speaking about. So you want Lamar there for the full 17. Obviously, he didn't play the last week because they had everything locked up. So he only played 16 games this year, but he would have played 17 if they had something to play for. Lamar got the bag, right? That's what a year ago we were talking about Lamar getting the bag. So Lamar got the bag. They drafted Zay Flowers, right? Isaiah Likely is a legitimate threat out there. The running game is going to be an issue, but they're going to bring somebody in. They're going to have running backs to play around with there. So yeah, Lamar's firmly at 6, and his floor is so ridiculously high because of the run and everything that he can't be any lower than what he is right here.
So to round off my tier 2, I would have Anthony Richardson and then Justin Herbert as my next guys. And you could flip flop those.
Spicy.
You could flip flop those if you want, but that would round off my tier 2 of players. And I have rookies on here as well, but I'm going to add the rookies in after we finish tiering everything. I'm going to slot them in after. So if anybody is looking for rookies, I'm going to slot those guys in at the end. But yeah, I'll have A-Rich and I'll have Herbert. A-Rich, we've saw in his healthy games, he's been a top 3 QB that he's played fully healthy. Now you can make the argument that could be cause for concern, but hopefully he can get his act together, start doing like Lamar a little bit more, and you're trying to protect himself. As Trevor Lawrence actually told A-Rich, like, this is the NFL. This is different. Like, you need to protect yourself. And he didn't protect himself. He wound up getting hurt. But he's a franchise guy there. And we've seen his upside and what he can be, especially as young as he is. So for me, I've got to slot him in right after Lamar. And then after that, I've got to have Herbert still up there in that second tier. He'll be the QB at the end of this tier for me. We've seen what Herbert can do. We know what he can do. Now it's just a matter of, all right, fixing the damn offense, getting them some weapons that don't get hurt, because that's been an issue now as well. Hopefully they address that in the draft. But what do you think here about the end of this tier after Lamar? And, what would you have different, if anything?
I can't put Anthony Richardson in that tier 2 just yet. I'm going to have to see him play a full healthy season before I can just kind of anoint him up there, because all of those guys, obviously CJ Stroud is the exception, but CJ Stroud had a hell of a rookie year and stayed healthy for the most part. So Anthony Richardson just doesn't belong in there for me because I haven't seen it enough, right? We saw a very small sample size, and by Halloween, we didn't hear anything from Anthony Richardson. I don't remember exactly when he got hurt. I think it was before that. So I can't have Anthony Richardson in there just yet. But Justin Herbert is right after Lamar. And the biggest reason for that is, first of all, we've seen what Justin Herbert could do, but also he's got a coach. Justin Herbert has a coach now.
That's true.
And if you look at John Harbaugh's record with quarterbacks, his track record with quarterbacks, Andrew Luck, how'd that work out? Pretty well. All right. He went to San Francisco and turned Alex Smith, I believe, into a pretty solid, stable quarterback. He drugged Jimmy G to the goddamn Super Bowl, if I'm getting it correct. So, like, legit. John Harbaugh's legit. Justin Herbert belongs right after Lamar Jackson at 7. And I think a lot of people have kind of soured on Justin Herbert just because of, the lack of playoff success, the lack of success kind of, with teams that we expected to play well. So that would be my issue with this particular tier 2.
I dig that. I can absolutely live with that. I think Herbert is the guy that you probably feel safer with. A-Rich, obviously that's the pure upside that you're trying to roll with. And in Superflex leagues, as your QB1, that could be risky if it doesn't pan out.
Risky.
But for me, I just feel like, we've seen that, like you said, it is a small sample size, but he is the franchise guy. He's going to be there. He's going to get his opportunities. So if he can just stay healthy, which is an if, but we said the same thing about CMC, right? We said the same thing about Lamar, right? I mean, so
A-Rich didn't make it out of September, man.
Yeah. What?
I don't think Anthony Richardson didn't even. I think he played the first week of October, and that was it. Like that.
No, for sure.
And
And I'm fine with having him lower if you don't want to go for, if you don't want to go for that upside. But if he
the
hits,
upside is
I
there
mean,
for sure.
it's obviously obviously a steal. But for sure, Herbert is cemented in there for me. I think, like you said, a lot of people have soured on Herbert, and you see it more now from like a lot of more like redraft players now starting to get into dynasty. But when you've real dynasty players know, like, all right, this is like, we should be buying Herbert, we should be buying Mahomes, right? Or when you're even just trying to just play in the market, right? It's not necessarily always about the players, right? But it's the market. Like I mentioned before, like if you have the 103 or the 104 and I don't care if I have CJ Stroud or Joe Burrow or Lamar maybe or Herbert, right? Can I get to the back end of that tier and pick up extra assets and extra pick on top of that just to move down a little bit in the tier? Like, I'm okay with that. Same thing just trading wise. CJ Stroud is valued so high right now. Can I get Joe Burrow in a second? Like, I'm fine with that.
Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat.
You know what
run for the hills.
You know what I mean? But that's the point, like where we're at, where people have, these kind of values where it's not a big deal from player to player. Like, just play the market, get the asset, because what you can do with that.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure. But yeah, that's the end of tier 2 for me. And then I get into my tier 3. Okay. And in the tier 3 here, we've got Kyler. We've got your boy Jordan Love. We've got Tua.
Ooh, there's somebody getting disrespected.
We've got
man is getting disrespected.
Dak. We've got Purdy. We got T-Law. This is a big tier. This is one of the biggest tiers for me. We've got Fields and we've got Jared Goff. So a large tier for me. But this
Which makes
is
sense.
basically the order that I would have it from top tier to bottom. And again, it's a tier. So if you want to move guys around in that tier, depending on your liking, that's absolutely fine. But this is what I'm kind of rolling with here. Kyler Murray, we know how good he is when he's healthy. We saw him come back last year. Hopefully he gets another weapon this year. Maybe it's Marvin Harrison. Maybe it's not. Jordan Love coming after that, the young quarterback that's coming in hot, good second half of the season. And Tua, you could flip-flop that if you want. You could put Tua in front of Love, if anything. But a lot of people love right now. But Tua led the league in passing yards there. So got to have Tua. And they're going to sign him to a contract. The team has said that they do like him. They want to give him a long-term contract. Even though he was asked at the end of the year, he wasn't that good in the playoffs. But who can they get that's better, I think, is the main question, especially for them with the system that they're running. Like, I think Tua is going to be absolutely fine there. Then I've got Dak coming in right after Tua. A little bit older, but had one of his best seasons. Is looking good. Has CeeDee Lamb, who's a beast right now. So Dak is going to be the next guy. Then you got Purdy rolling in. T-Law, I have pretty much towards the end of this tier. And I know maybe a lot of people have questions about T-Law. He just hasn't done anything. How can I put him ahead of some of these other guys? You can do it because of age if you want, but at the quarterback position, more than any of the other positions, they play so much longer that, like, it's not a crazy big difference a few years at the QB position, at least in my eyes, because otherwise I'd put Stroud ahead of Burrow, like if it was, wide receivers almost, if you're looking at it that way. But for quarterbacks, they last a little bit longer. They play till a little bit older. So for me, it's like Purdy's throwing 30 tutties. Dak is throwing 30 tutties. T-Law, I don't know what he's doing. But he hasn't played up to our expectations.
No.
Do they maybe go out and get a top tier one? Like, does T. Higgins wind up on a team like the Jaguars? I was going to mention that name. Yep. Does that help him vault into the 30 touchdown range? That some of these other guys have. So that's the question marks, around T-Law. I just haven't seen as much to put him any higher than some of the other guys that have him in front. Then you've got Justin Fields. Justin Fields, is he even going to be a starter next year? Is he going to be on the Bears? Is he going to be on the Falcons? Is he going to be somewhere else? He's got 1 year to really prove himself here, because if he gets hurt, then I don't know. That's going to be rough. And then I've got Jared Goff there as well. But Justin Fields, I put him ahead of Jared Goff for the simple fact of that upside. You know, if he does play and winds up getting on a team, the upside that he has to finish as a top 10, top 5 quarterback, I like that upside. And then Jared Goff, who kind of always gets hated on, always gets pushed down to the bottom, but it's just
one
a
of my
solid
biggest
quarterback.
values
He's
ever.
going to give you 28 to 32-ish touchdowns. That's just what he's going to do. He's going to give you 45-ish 100 yards, 28 to 32 touchdowns. He might not finish top 10, but maybe, you know, top 12, top 13. Like, he's going to be a top 15-ish guy. He's going to be solid for you, and he's a fine QB2 to have.
He's probably the best QB2 that you can ask for, in my estimation. And he's that's exactly where I was going with that, is the value for him, because, and then we, like you said, we haven't even factored in the rookies yet. So that makes Jared Goff even that much more of a value. So Jared Goff to me, and I've been singing Jared Goff's praises. I'm a Packers fan. I have no love for the Lions, right? But I don't really hate the Lions because they haven't been a threat. But from the standpoint of being an objective football fan, is I've loved me some Jared Goff for the last 2 seasons, right? Even before last, you know, at the end of last season, you know, going into this season, you just look at what they have and what they put together. And listen, that Lions team is going to be solid. Like, they're solid at every position, skill wise, right? You got good receivers. You got probably the best upcoming tight end in football, right? And they go out and get Gibbs. Like, yeah, Goff makes it. He kind of keeps that. He's the glue for that team that keeps it all together. So I love me some Jared Goff there.
Yeah,
I do have an issue.
All right, go ahead. We'll get to that in a second. So that is basically my tier 3. It's a large tier 3 because I feel like after pretty much Herbert and Anthony Richardson go in like the back end of the first round, you're going to have Kyler and all these guys kind of go in the second and third rounds pretty much. You know, so there's a tier break where after Herbert, you're probably going to see more wide receivers. You're going to see all the Chases, CDs, Amon-Ra's. You know, you'll see the 101 like Marvin Harrison pretty much. And then you'll start seeing some of these other quarterbacks. But yeah, what do you think about the tier 3? What do you have an issue with? What are you switching up? What are you taking out of this tier? What are you adding in this tier? What are you feeling?
Kyler and Dak are switching positions for me.
Kyler and Dak. That's okay. I'm okay with that too. You can put Dak up here and put Kyler. Well, I can't put Kyler lower than Love and Tua just because of the rushing upside. But I am okay with putting Dak ahead of Love or Tua if you want to. But go ahead.
I do have Dak. The thing with Kyler is I know from a fantasy perspective, he can be phenomenal and really good. That team, for the most part, isn't that great. I know, listen, you add Marvin Harrison, you feel really good about it. They're going to be down in a bunch of games. You feel like he'll have to throw it, run it, you know, do what he does. He's a smaller dude that runs around a lot, and that makes me nervous for his long-term fantasy stability. Kyler makes me really nervous. So from that standpoint, I'd take Dak over Kyler. Honestly, I know. Listen, Kyler has a higher upside in a sense, but I think Dak has more long-term stability than a Kyler Murray, even at what Dak is 29, 30 now. So I do like me some Dak, and then I would go Jordan Love right after Dak, honestly, because I just think that Jordan Love, especially down the stretch, and I know it was only his first year, but him and CJ Stroud kind of have mirror, you know, seasons in terms of, obviously Jordan Love's not a rookie, but they're both their first year starting. They wildly exceeded expectations, and a lot was placed on Jordan Love. Bro, no Christian Watson for a bulk of the season. His best tight end, Luke Musgrave, got hurt. Aaron Jones was in and out of the lineup all season, and the dude still finished with 32 touchdowns passing. He had another, I think, 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns. So I think that's an underrated part of Jordan Love's game, is his ability to be able to move around. Like, he's athletic. He's not some statue back there where he could move around, and he has some rushing upside. So I have Jordan Love second slot there, and then Tua behind him, and then Kyler there. The rest of that list, I'm okay with as well. So that's how I would have it. I would have Dak 1, Jordan Love 2, Tua 3. You could argue Kyler over Tua just because Kyler has the rushing upside. And then Tua there because he has all those weapons.
Yeah, I think any of these 4 between Dak, Kyler, Love, and Tua, you can mix it up however you want. But I feel like that's a kind of you could throw Brock in there as well, kind of, people like Brock too. But you could throw those kind of 5 guys pretty much there in the front. And then the back end of this tier for me, is that T-Law, Fields, and Golf. And you're good with that there? Or you like where
Yeah,
do you have T-Law?
it's what's frustrating about it is that he's Herbert to a lesser degree, right? Like we can kind of explain away why Justin Herbert wasn't able to play well. I think the problem is with Trevor Lawrence. How can we explain why he didn't play well?
I don't know. I mean, well, we've
do we
also seen
explain it?
Justin Herbert, have 40 touchdowns and 37. Like we've seen him have almost 40 touchdowns 2 years in
Right.
a row.
So how do we explain why why Trevor Lawrence hasn't played as well? Because we think the physical talent's there. They added Calvin Ridley. They have a Christian Kirk. They have, ETN, who's a really good running back. Evan Ingram, who's a really good tight end, right? So all the components were there. And that meltdown the Jaguars had at the end of the season, I think that's left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And then what happens to Fields? Like he's got to be somewhere in here. Like for me, like this is kind of where I have to slot him. Like I can't really put him much higher, and I can't really put him much lower because there's just still so many questions.
I think the biggest thing for me with Justin Fields is, if not now, when, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
teetering on that oblivion like situation. And I think that him going to the Chicago Bears didn't do him any justice because historically they do not have a good organization in terms of drafting and developing quarterbacks. So I think him going to the Chicago Bears didn't do him any justice. And that's not me hating on the Bears as a Packers fan. That's me just spitting out facts, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think Justin Fields, it's now or never this year for him. And I think we get lulled into a little bit of false sense in terms of his long-term prospects because they always have these terrible starts to the season, right? They're virtually out of it. And then the last 6 games, it's like they're killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Where Justin Fields is putting up awesome numbers. The Bears rip off a couple of wins in a row. And it's like, oh, is Justin Fields the future now?
I don't know. It's just there's just too many questions. And like if we know like the Bears are committing to him, like maybe then like he moves up in here. But for now, I can't have him any higher. But if you do and you're going for just that upside, like I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. And before we get into the next tier, guys, smash that like for us if you haven't already. Smash that subscribe if you're new. Let me get to some of the comments here. Where we left off. Allen Hurts, Mahomes, Lamar, Stroud, Burrow, top 6. Yep. Why is Lamar MVP? His numbers aren't great.
I think because the team won 13 games and finished as the 1 seed, and he was the catalyst behind it.
Yeah. And they lose a running back coming out the gate. JK was supposed to be big. Richardson is a bust. Yeah, I don't know I don't know if we can call that yet, but there are people that don't like him. That's fine. I'll take him. All you need is a couple games for his value to go up and then trade him. Like so,
Yeah.
If he's a value, like you don't have to like him, but just to have him and then move off, like what you can do with
Capitalize
that
on that
value.
value.
I
Like
mean, all it takes is first game of the season, he comes out and finishes as QB1 overall week 1. I mean, you could trade him for almost whatever you want at that point.
In a super flex, yes. Absolutely.
But he definitely needs to get his accuracy up there for sure. But like I said, if you don't like him, I mean, then you could just come off him. That's fine.
It's not that I don't like Anthony Richardson. It's just that I'd rather have other guys besides him.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like for the risk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now his rushing is even more deadly. Herbert at 7. Okay, Jamie. Feel that. Trying to trade for Herbert right now. Yeah, if you can grab them, I mean, what do you got to give up? Jordan Love, most overrated QB in the
Oh,
league. Emil said.
whoa. Well, that Emil, hold on. I'm not gonna let that comment slide. Emil, we it, we got to start putting some respect
You
on
hit
Jordan
Hammer's
Love's
hard.
name. You better start putting some respect on Jordan Love's name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll put Bowers in the tight end tiers. Tight end is rough. I'm gonna post tomorrow actually my tight end
That is gonna
dynasty
be
rankings
spicy
on
this
on
year.
Instagram. You'll find it and I guess I'll tell you right now. You'll find it spicy that I
I love that word.
and I'm still debating it. I really am still debating my 12 and 13 between Goddard and Cole Kmet.
Okay.
And I know I don't know if that sounds weird that Goddard is all the way down there, but
No,
he hasn't finished higher than top 10. He hasn't played a healthy season. You've got a team that doesn't necessarily throw the ball a ton. When you got AJ Brown, you've got Devonta Smith, you've got a couple guys there, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So,
right.
when we talk about the tight ends, it'll be a little bit interesting. But yeah, I'm kind of debating between him and Kmet. I have just been flip flopping back and forth as tight end 12 there, but
Yeah, Isaac brings up a good point right after that. Is just that there's a lot of these older guys,
mhm.
and then we have this new crop of young tight ends. So I completely agree with that, Isaac. And we've touched on that, previously in the past when we were kind of, had some tight end discussion, whether it be in trade or different situations, start sit type of thing. So yeah, the tight ends is going to be really, really interesting.
Marty in the building. What up, Marty?
Marty in the house,
Gotta
my
risk it
man.
for the biscuit. That's what I'm talking about, Jamie. Gotta risk it for the
I
biscuit.
That's fine, but
Mahomes' stats suck this year. He should be in tier 2. Just to be clear, we are talking dynasty. So these are dynasty rankings. Um, so I don't necessarily know if I can agree with him being in tier 2 because we've seen what he can do and where he can fit. But
and you
that's
gotta
fair if you wanna
imagine.
say that. I mean, hopefully, I'm in a league with you because if I can get Patrick Mahomes
And listen,
I'll take him for sure.
you gotta imagine that Kansas City is gonna go out there and solidify that wide receiver core this offseason. That's another component that we, not to say we overlook per se, but we can go based on, what we know with these rankings and we project ahead a little bit, but you've gotta imagine that they're gonna upgrade that wide receiver core this season.
And just rankings in general, I mean, there's just it's not just so black and white, right? I mean, the tiers, like you might always in different situations, you might want, if you're in a win now situation or if you're in rebuild situation, you're going to want different players, right? But this is just a general breakdown of rankings, basically almost in startup drafts, just rankings in general of how I feel for the future, what their contracts are right now, all the risk that's involved, all of the value that's involved. There's a ton of different factors that you kind of have to bake into
A lot of
how you
layers.
make your
Yeah.
rankings, and everybody is a little bit different in how they do their rankings. So just like Hammer doesn't agree with some of the guys I have up there, I don't agree with some of the guys he has. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but in a generalization, this is why I try and break it up into tiers, because it's just
And
the
also
easiest
too,
way to kind of
also
to kind of
too,
see.
also too, like something that we take into account is right, especially we were talking about Patrick Mahomes from the Facebook user. Like, if you're gonna tell me that Patrick Mahomes' floor is 4,200 yards, right, and a QB 8 finish, that's the floor. That's his worst season that he's gonna have in the next 6 years, 8 years.
Well, let me just remind you
Sign me up.
of the previous 5 seasons for fantasy
Sign
football.
me up.
QB1, 52 touchdowns, QB7, QB4, QB4, QB1, and these are, I mean, 5,000-yard seasons, 4,800-yard seasons, over 40
40.
touchdown seasons, numerous of them. So, when we're talking dynasty, we're talking about long term, we're talking about longevity. We see what he can do, when he has weapons. And this year, I mean, there was a ton of drops, as we saw, right? Ton
Yeah,
of
I was
drops,
gonna bring that up.
ton of interceptions off of drops on top of that. So it was just a really bad season for Patrick Mahomes. And he still finished what? Top 8? What he finished 7?
QB8.
Finished 8th this year. So he still finished top 8 in a horrible season. So like Hammer said, if that's the floor, I mean, sign me up all day. But yeah, I appreciate you, Facebook user. Hop over to YouTube so we can actually see. But yeah, we are talking dynasty, so that's why it's a little bit different. We're not talking about just regular fantasy football redraft, or we're not talking about just the season that just passed. Just to make more clear, because I know it doesn't say that on the screen, but
so really quick, just to touch on this, just to touch on this particular comment and why we do what we do. I'm a Packers fan, and you could not tell me that I wasn't more impressed with Jordan Love's season and the numbers he put up and how he looked in the last, whatever it was, 8 games and then rolling into the playoffs. I would be out of my mind if I put Jordan Love over Patrick Mahomes as a lifelong Packers fan and somebody that was happy to see us develop a franchise quarterback this season. I could argue Jordan Love belongs in tier 2 just because of the multitude of weapons he has. And I could also argue Jordan Love being in tier 2 because of the guys that Jordan Love is an equal opportunity employer when it comes to throwing the football. That's the thing that I love the most outside of the stats and everything. He's throwing a Bo Melton. He's making Dontavian Wicks a household name, right? Luke Musgrave goes down and Tucker Kraft all of a sudden becomes a fantasy relevant tight end. So I could argue Jordan Love in tier 2. I do want to see it for another, I do want to continue to see him play at that elite level that he played in at the back half of this particular season. But some of these guys up here, like, I could argue Jordan Love over Anthony Richardson just because I've seen it longer for Jordan Love at a consistent clip than Anthony Richardson. But the upside you talk about is very real with Anthony Richardson. And Jordan Love wasn't even close to being on the injury report at all this season. So that's another factor I keep in as well.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing I'll say about Patrick Mahomes, because I know everybody always brings up Tyreek Hill. He had arguably his best season last season with no Tyreek Hill, having 45 overall tutties. So, he had his best season, with Tyreek Hill when he had the 50 tutties, but he's also thrown, 45 without him last year, or rushed 4 and threw for 41 last year without Tyreek Hill. So, and then on top of that, like, Mahomes has finished top 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons. I mean, at a 6. So until Jordan Love can do that consistently, finish top 5, I don't think we can put him anywhere near Mahomes as far as dynasty purposes. I mean, you're talking about
he was QB5 this year. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh yeah, for sure. But is he going to continuously?
That's the question.
That? So
that's the question.
Draft worthy to pair with Rice. He can take the top off of those defenses. Maybe. We'll see. Appreciate you, Facebook user. But yeah, hop over to YouTube. Join the club. Yeah, he did bring up Tyreek Hill. I knew he was going to bring up Tyreek Hill.
that question, that argument's null and void because he went out there and threw 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns. Oh yeah, did Patrick Mahomes win the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill? I think he did. Case closed.
For sure. Yeah. Prettiest him, song said.
I'm not sold, but
Bo Soccer. I'm the only one who takes love over. I'm not the only one who takes love over Mahomes. Listen, go ahead and do that if you want to.
Come on, guys.
But I'm just gonna say that it's not the wise thing to do when you're playing Dynasty. That's all. That's all.
No. I'm not. That's I can't do that. Like, we're talking about Mahomes
love over Purdy. Yeah,
yes,
love over Purdy.
I agree over that. I
agree on that. Kyler and Dak could be in tier 2. You could make the argument for that, but when you're doing, like, especially when you're doing a startup draft, like after Herbert, like all these wide receivers pretty much go. Kyler goes somewhere in like the early second, mid second, and then Jordan Love mid second, late second. So it's kind of that's kind of how I break it down. But that's fair if you want to put those guys in tier 2 as well. I could live with that.
Yeah, I could see the argument for Dak in tier 2, and that's why I would have had him number 1 in tier 3, just because like Dak's gonna play another. He's 30, but Dak could play to 38, 40, right? Like so there's a long and the point
That's
that you
fair.
make, is really, really true, is that we have to look at it like a 30-year-old quarterback is like a 22-year-old running back. Like that's the how we have to look at it, because these quarterbacks play until they're 40.
Yep. Absolutely. And Facebook user, I am going to add in the rookie quarterbacks at the end when I get done tiering everything. I'll slot them in, so you'll see where I have them. Yeah, you can't bet against Mahomes for sure.
No, Jesus.
All right.
Don't
So
do
now
that.
coming to this next tier, and this is kind of why my tier 3 ends here, because now we start getting into the
Questions.
more
The
question
questions.
marks, more older players. They call it the QB purgatory, right? What's really kind of happening with these players? So leading off this tier for me, it's got to be Deshaun Watson. I know he was disappointing, but he's got the contract. He's going to be on that team. He's going to play. I mean, we just need to see a full season. I mean, we need to see the full season. We need to see him be better. But, the weird thing, well, I don't want to say weird, but when he got hurt and then like once Flacco came through, they changed the offense, right? They started passing the ball like a lot more. And I don't necessarily think I loved the offense that they were trying to run with Watson beforehand. So maybe if they change it up a little bit and do pass it a little bit more and let Deshaun Watson kind of do what he really does best. I didn't feel like he was really playing like himself. Like it was just a different kind of offense that he was running. So I'm interested to see kind of what you think about Deshaun Watson and that whole situation.
So this time a year ago, if you for all our loyal subscribers out there, this time a year ago, Steve was a huge Deshaun Watson buy because of the value, and I understand that, and I'm going to take
do it
that
again this
account.
year. He's even better value now.
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna factor that into my response here. No, thank you on Deshaun Watson. No, thank you. Now, there's value there. I don't disagree with that. I totally agree with that. And looking from an objective fantasy football, enthusiast, I agree there's a ton of value there, right? You might be able to get him for a second round pick at this point, considering all these guys we have ahead of him, and we haven't even added the rookies in yet. So the value's there. I agree. No, thank you. That's how I feel about Deshaun Watson right now.
Let me put in the rest of my tier here. I've got Bryce Young. I've got Baker Mayfield.
Ooh.
I've got Kirk. I've got Aaron Rodgers is another kind of big tier, because now we've got all these old guys that you can throw in here, right?
I like Russ in there.
I got Russ in here too. And
I'll be honest with you.
One more is Will Levis, and you can kind of put Will Levis anywhere kind of in here. He is still a little bit of a risk, but it's possible that he's safe for this year. Maybe they grab a quarterback. I mean, but I think that Levis kind of gave them some sort of life a little bit, like something to be a little bit excited about, where he might get this opportunity this year to kind of show what he has. So you can kind of throw him in anywhere here in with the old guys. I'm fine with that, depending on how you were trying to build your team, I guess. But that's what I've got for this tier, which kind of the rest of the guys are kind of be in the bottom tier that we've got here. But yeah, what do you think about this particular tier? I've got Bryce here. I still am a believer in Bryce. I think it's just a bad situation. They've got to get him some weapons. That offense needs to change. Like, just everything was just wrong. But I still am a believer, and he's still a good young quarterback that's going to have his opportunities. They're not going to just come off of him after one season or two seasons. I think they give him a chance here. Baker Mayfield, a guy that has kind of been floating around everywhere, hasn't really found his home. He might have found a home now. Did they give him a contract this year? If they don't, somebody else probably sure will. He brought them to the playoffs. I mean, they've got some weapons over there. So I feel like Baker
playoff game.
I feel like Baker could get a little contract there. Kirk Cousins, we know he's probably got a couple years left. Is it in Minnesota? Is it not? I don't know, but he's a gunslinger, so I feel comfortable with Kirk Cousins maybe for a season or two. Aaron Rodgers, another one. We don't know how long, maybe another season or two, maybe more, who knows? But I feel like he's at least a top 15-ish quarterback. You've got Garrett Wilson over there. Do they bring in somebody else? You've got Breece Hall. So he should be pretty safe there. Matt Stafford, another maybe 1 to 2 years. He's always banged up. We don't know what's going to happen. Does that team implode? Do they just not? Are they not good next year? Does somebody get hurt? And then do they have to just kind of revamp everything? Does he wind up retiring? Who knows? Russell Wilson, same kind of situation. He's a free agent right now. We don't know where he's going. So kind of you have some question marks here in this kind of tier. Everybody's got questions. And then, like I said, finish it off with Will Levis there. And you can move Will Levis up to, behind Baker Mayfield if you want, as far as age concerns and as far as just one season for next season. But I feel like the Kirk, Aaron Rodgers, Stafford, Russ, those are guys that you can probably hopefully depend on as your QB2 or QB3, but I probably want somebody else because it's not that comfortable. If you went into last year with Aaron Rodgers as your QB2, you were screwed. He's more kind of have to be that QB3. It's hard to just kind of rely on some of these older guys with injury. Same thing with Kirk Cousins, right? With injuries that happen and how old they are. Russ winds up getting benched. I mean,
and he
so
played
all
pretty
these guys,
well.
He did, and he did play well, and that was, the unfortunate thing about it. But that's the thing with these older quarterbacks. Like if seasons hit the fan, it's like you start benching people, and we don't know what's going to happen. So, but yeah, what do you think about the rest of this particular tier? Who would you have where, or who are you arguing with here?
No, I'm not going to argue too much here. I already said no thank you to Deshaun Watson, but some of these other guys are very interesting. Like Bryce Young is the youngest guy in this category, and I think that he's very interesting. Another guy that I think is very interesting is you mentioned Russell Wilson, man. Like if Russell Wilson finds himself in Atlanta, how do you feel about that? You feel pretty fucking good about that. So, and the fact that Russell Wilson was able to bounce back and play really well. Like Denver was threatening to make the playoffs. Did we forget about that all of a sudden? Right? With a coach that didn't like him. So I feel good about Russell Wilson. Matthew Stafford. The thing with Matthew Stafford is I think he is more risky than a Russell Wilson. So I would have Russell Wilson a little bit higher in this list, probably right after Bryce. Just because I feel like Russell Wilson could provide some stability for the next 2 or 3 years. If you're talking about a QB2, QB3 type guy. Will Levis, super interesting, but you still, a lot of unknowns there. Kirk Cousins, right? Super interesting. So yeah, I mean, listen, you could kind of flip flop any of these quarterbacks anywhere you want. And I think Marty put it best in the chat where he said this is the best ball tier, which I like that. That's a really good way to frame it, Marty. So yeah, I do think, like I said, 2 guys really stand out in this tier for me. Number 1, Bryce Young, just because he's super young and we really want to see what Carolina is going to do. And then Russell Wilson, because I think he could still play. And I still think he has some, high-end QB2 ball left in him, especially if he goes to a place like Atlanta where the weapons are in place.
Yeah, I think pretty much like after Jared Goff and like that third tier, it's just like pick whoever you want or whoever you like more at that point. Do you want to go with the older guys in the production, or do you want to take the chance on having a Bryce Young wind up hitting, this year or down the line, or Deshaun Watson getting back to form? I mean, there's all question marks in that tier, so kind of divvy it up how you want to, but that's that tier there. And then I guess in the next tier, you've got like the Daniel Jones, you've got, I guess, the Cars and Genos, and I guess you can throw Pickett and Howell up there. I guess that's all the QBs I kind of put up here at the moment. But this is we don't know what's happening. This Pickett basically lost his job already. Sam Howell, same thing. Geno was horrible this year. Carr is always shit, and Daniel Jones, he's gonna get one more season. Maybe you can make the argument for him to go to be put up at the end of this tier, but
nah, I'm good.
Does a QB fall? Do the Giants maybe take a QB if maybe a QB falls? Like that's a possibility too. So,
Yeah, that's a pretty solid list. Obviously, like you said, everybody has their different, rankings. And the one thing that we want to point out is we're not looking at it of QB rankings for 2023 because of the past season, right? We take the past season into account, and project ahead a little bit, but it's, body of work. What do we see? What's around them? What does the coaching staff look like? What does the organization look like? Is the organization in upheaval? Right. So those are all things that we factor into this, and not just this past season.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, there's Diaz. Crispy said Watson before suspension and injuries. Yeah, I mean,
That was 3 years ago.
I know, but I
That was
still have
3
to
years
have him up
ago.
there. I have to have. I feel safer with Watson than I do with any of these other guys. I mean, I can't agree on the Russ. Like, I think Russ is interesting, but I'm not comfortable with Russ. I mean, if you had Russ, or if you bought Russ last year for your championship run, he fucking didn't even make it there because they didn't, they wound up benching him. So can that situation somehow happen again? Like, I just don't feel as safe with Russ maybe as you
All right,
do.
that's fair. That's
I
fair.
feel safer with Aaron Rodgers. I feel safer. I don't even know if I feel safer with Kirk Cousins, but the production that Kirk is going to give me on whatever team, I'll take that 1 year of production, rather than trying to take the chance on maybe Russell Wilson. But for me, at least in this tier 4, Watson, Bryce, and Baker are like those main guys. After that, you can kind of mix up whatever the hell you want after that. But for me, at least, like, that's the 3 that I kind of like. I like in this tier.
The reason why I said I'm interested in Russ, I didn't say he was going to be all of a sudden a QB1 again. I didn't say I don't want everybody to get their panties in a bunch, but I just said Russ is interesting because he did play well, and because if he goes to a team like Atlanta, I feel solid about what he can be, a high-end QB2. That's what I said. Deshaun Watson, can he be a productive quarterback? Sure. Do I need to see it because he hasn't been that since 2020? All right. So do we not forget that Deshaun Watson hasn't been productive in 3 years? Like, are we just all of a sudden forgetting that? So that's my biggest issue is I need to see Deshaun Watson get out there and play and be productive. Right. So that's where I'm leaning with that. I'm just saying Russ is interesting from a standpoint. If he goes to a team like Atlanta, I like that. I like those pieces, and I like him as a QB2.
Sure. All right, let's get to some of the rookies here. Caleb for me slots in at the end of tier 2 for me, right after Justin Herbert. What do you think about Caleb? Where are you having him slotted? And same thing for you guys out there watching. Where are you having Caleb slotted? For me, I've got him slotted right after Justin Herbert here.
It's tough because he's probably going to go to a team, those top 3 teams. What does their situation look like, right? If he goes to New England, you feel great about that? No, I don't. So the tricky thing with the rookies is I think these guys belong somewhere in the tier 3-ish, just because we don't know what their situation is going to be, and I think that does matter a ton. See Bryce Young, right? We had Bryce Young a lot higher, and we felt a lot better about him doing this last year, right? And now look where we have him, because he went to a shitty situation that doesn't have any weapons, and we feel a lot differently about Bryce Young right now than we did 365 days ago. So that's kind of where I'm going to have a little more restraint where I put these rookies ahead of guys that have proven something in the NFL, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. So I would have Drake May Caleb Williams, I would have him somewhere after Brock Purdy, somewhere in that mid-tier 3 range, just because the situation is going to matter. He could be a great quarterback, but the situation is going to dictate how I truly feel about him.
I can dig that. At least in startups, he's going to be going right after that Herbert-ish. But what Caleb can do, the upside that he has, the age advantage that he has compared to some of these guys in the tier 3 is kind of why I have to slot him there at the end of tier 2, and just the value in general, all the hype and everything. Now, these other guys, I've got Jaden Daniels kind of sliding right in here at the top of tier 3, and you could argue Drake May as well. Or you could put again that could change depending on like when these guys get drafted or what happens. But if Jaden Daniels and Drake May both get drafted in the top 5, this is probably where you can slot him here. And you can argue to put May behind some of these guys as well. But with Jaden Daniels, that upside, I got to have him there. And like I said, you can argue with May kind of anywhere in this third tier as well. But I'm okay with all 3 of them. You putting them in the third tier. I mean, that's fair. That's fair as well. You want to go with the proven talent over, the young rookies. But, we see, especially now, the way like the market is, one big game from any of these guys. And with the age, we see that value just skyrocket up. So, depending how you want to play it and how you want to build your team, would determine obviously who you kind of want to go with or where you want to slot them in. But as far as my rankings, this is kind of where I would have them slotted in.
Yeah, and like I said, I just have some trepidation on these rookies because the top 3 teams, like the Bears, are the best situation in terms of talent that's around those top 3 teams. Now, if somebody trades up, we can't really forecast what the Bears are going to do because we're not totally sure. But let's just assume that Caleb Williams goes to the Bears. I have him in the tier 3. Like I still have him in the tier 3, situation, probably behind Kyler and Jordan Love, man. Like Jordan Love's only 25 years old. He's about to get a contract. Like Jordan Love is going to be locked in. So that talk about Jordan Love and we're not sure what's going to happen. Like he proved it. Jordan Love's in. So for me, those guys, all 3 of those guys, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels are at least behind Jordan Love in my eyes, just because their situations, man. Like New England is not going to be good offensively, right? I don't care who you put back there. The Commanders, right? The Commanders, there's a lot of upheaval with the Commanders right now. Now, I think whoever goes to the Commanders could have some offensive potential and kind of be really solid because they do still have some talent there offensively, but and then Caleb to the Bears. I think Caleb to the Bears is the best situation for a rookie coming in just because of the ancillary parts around them and, how they've kind of built that team. You got DJ Moore, you got Cole Kmet. And don't forget, the Bears have the 109 as well. So they could go out there and get an Odunze and really set things up. So Caleb to the Bears, I can understand putting him at the back end or the front end of tier 3. I would still need to see it, though, because the Bears don't have a good track record drafting quarterbacks and developing them, like I said. So see Justin Fields.
That's true. That is true. And the main thing, guys, with the value here is, like I said, these rookie guys have a couple good games, if even that. I mean, and they're vaulted up way past some of these guys, just mainly based on age, right? So, if you're rebuilding, if you're contending, obviously there's going to be different situations on who you want to grab. In startups, right? You're choosing the 101, the 102, the 103, the 104, right? Don't put names to these guys yet, right? Especially if you're doing startups and you have to, and you're drafting the draft picks because you're going to have the rookie draft, right? And you're taking the 101 after, Justin Herbert, right? Doesn't mean that you have to take Caleb Williams, or don't just pencil it in like, all right, I'm definitely taking Caleb Williams, or I'm definitely taking Marvin Harrison, right? You have a whole draft that you've got to do to determine, which route that you want to go. And then you have just the value of that pick in general. Once it, like, people go on teams, once we have the draft and everything and we know more, like, things are going to change. Drake May could fall in the draft and then very well he could be all the way down here. Jaden Daniels as well. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We have.
I'll be honest with you.
Now, obviously, the Patriots isn't a great situation, but if these guys are as good as we think they are, or as good as we're hyping them up to be, or as good as the NFL is hyping them up to be, then you've got a nice young rookie quarterback. And we've seen what Stroud did this year. Not saying that any of these guys are going to do what Stroud did, but we see how he vaulted all the way up in just one season.
I was gonna say along the lines, right? There's really 2 ways it can kind of go, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can go the CJ Stroud route, or it can go the Bryce Young route, right? Like there's 2 real ways that this can go. So from the the overall philosophy of it, right? We're throwing darts at a dartboard at this particular moment in time. And I think it's important to remember, but I'll be quite frank with you. Whoever goes to New England, I'm not feeling that. Like, that situation is pretty damn bad. But yeah, but if the point I was going to make before was, if a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels fall, that's actually a benefit in my eyes, because they're probably going to teams that have some stability in place, right? So that would actually make me feel better if a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels fell. Like, if Daniels fell to Atlanta at 8, and I keep bringing up Atlanta because they need a quarterback. It feels like it feels like they need that quarterback. So if Jaden Daniels fell to Atlanta, you like if Drake May fell to Atlanta, you really love that situation, just from
Well,
a outside perspective looking in.
Facebook user actually brings up a good point
Yeah,
here. Is like last year we thought
it
the
did.
opposite, right? We thought
It
Bryce
did
Young was going into a better situation than
for sure.
Stroud was, and it
Couldn't
actually,
agree more.
turned out to be the opposite. So,
We brought that up a
what if
ton.
New England does go out there and get a big time wide receiver to go along with now their new quarterback? I mean,
Yeah.
Belichick's gone, right? So,
Yep.
we're talking about a whole different
Regime change. Yep.
regime coming in. So, could that be a good thing?
Yeah, it possibly can, and that's totally fair. That's not something that I had brought up, so that's totally fair. Belichick's not the GM anymore, right? So he's not anything anymore in New England. So that's a pretty good point on your end, but just look at the talent that's on that team, right? The cupboard's
Mhm.
pretty damn bare, from a person, and also that division they play in, like that division that they play in is no joke, with Miami, Buffalo, and then obviously the Jets. So that New England situation is going to be rough.
Mhm. For sure. But yeah, that's pretty much quarterback tiers here. And these guys this is the range that they're going to be going in. But, if you want to be on the more safe side of things, if you're, uh, worried about situations and stuff, like you could kind of put him behind Brock, maybe. Like, I'd be okay with that too. Like, cause
Mm,
I don't know, like Trevor, like, give me one of the fucking other guys.
what do you mean?
Justin Fields, man.
Yeah,
Golf, yeah. I mean, he's solid, but it's all about the value. It's all about the flexibility. It's all about your league, right? Depending on your format, depending on your league mates, right? The people
for
that you
sure.
play with. Is it, a more beginner kind of league? Is it more experienced kind of players? So there's a lot of things that matter here. How many starters is it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I bring this up a lot because I think it is a big factor. I bring up the situations, right? I bring up the organizational structure. I bring up the coaching, structure that's in place, all those different things, because that matters to me, right? In a situation, just take my team, like the Packers, right? The organizational structure is good. Now, I didn't think Love would be this good, right? I thought he would be solid. I said 12 to 15, ish range, and he turned out to be a little bit better than that. But yeah, man, the draft is really gonna kind of sway me. Once that draft happens and we figure out where these guys go, then I could feel a little bit more better, and can say, all right, Caleb's throwing to DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and Odunaze. Like, all right, give me
Mhm.
some of that, like, really give me some of that. So um that's kind of my take on it.
Shoot. Watson didn't play for 2 years, at least not football, still only 28. What is he 29, 28? How old is, somebody
He's
give us
not
an
that
age
old.
check on Watson. I think he's 29 now.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, he's
Russ
not
to
that
this
old, but
Yeah.
bro, his confidence. I mean, he's 28 now.
Yeah, so he'll be 29. Okay. Yeah, alright. Not bad.
Mm.
That's why I still like him. They can't do nothing. They can't do nothing but play him. Jamie said, "What about Russ to the Steelers?" That's another one I heard as
Ooh,
well.
I like that.
Wilson doesn't have a team, played QB3 plus, just showing on a good team, good coach. So put up top 12 numbers. Russ was back in QB2 on a good week. Russ was solid this season, but like I said, yeah, being that he wasn't on the squad, I mean, I know people lost big time, where it hurt people big time, like when he got
Yeah,
benched. It hurt me in
yeah,
one of my in redraft league. Like
yeah. I'm here
Taylor
for it.
behind Love. Yep, that's fair.
I'm not saying Russ is anything great, like I said, but if he goes to a halfway decent situation, I think Russ is still viable.
That's fair too. Facebook user Caleb is really the 101 in rookie tiers, but people have prospect fatigue. 102 is the pick to have this rookie fever season.
I ain't mad at that.
Yeah. Situation is going to be just as bad. We don't know what the situation is going to be right now. Right now, we're just going off of talent and what the NFL is thinking at the moment, or at least what we're hearing. But again, these things are gonna change. Of course, once we get to the season, we'll do rankings again. I mean, we've still got a long way till then. But appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Feels to Atlanta. We've heard that as well. Yeah, I saw Stroud fall in a few drafts. And then once Young went first pick, that kind of just automatically vaulted up.
There were people taking A-Rich over Stroud.
Yeah, there were people taking A-Rich over even Bryce too. I always say A-Rich was going 101 in a few leagues.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Even the hungry players looking for a new contract. Yeah, I mean, problem is they got no choice but to play the guy. So
yeah, he's not going anywhere with that contract.
Falcons drafting Brock Bowers. No way.
My God. You know what, Diaz? I'm not mad at that because the Falcons do things we don't expect them to do. We didn't expect them to draft Bijan.
Got the 1-1. QBs aren't the best. Love, Watson, Jones, Mac Jones. Yeah, I'd definitely be going QB there.
Yeah.
For sure. Get yourself the QB.
Lock that bitch in.
For sure.
Man, I love this.
Damn, was that long? I think that was longer than expected.
Bro, it went by quick.
We started it earlier than usual too.
It went by quick. I look at my thing, it's 11:30. I'm like, God damn, that went by that fast. But I think because it's such, like you said, once you get past that really tier 2, then you could really start having a lot of fun with. Even in tier 2, you can start kind of really tossing things, tossing it around and see where guys are falling. But I love this kind of shit right here.
Sure. Yeah, before we hop off, guys, appreciate everybody coming on. Drop any last questions that you guys have in the comments there. Go Niners, Diaz.
No,
go
come
Chiefs.
On, Diaz. No,
go Chiefs,
Diaz.
Baby.
Who is Diaz's favorite team? Do we know?
He's a Niner. He's a Niner fan. Yeah.
Oh, get out of here with that garbage.
Bo Soccer says he's got the 1-8. Hoping one of these top 7 slip to me. Yeah, there kind of is a tier break after like the top 7, pretty much almost. Because you've got Caleb, you've got May, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison, and Neighbors in no particular order. And then you've got like Odunze and Bowers, and then it's kind of that's kind of where it stops off basically after the 107. So. Hopefully one of those guys fall to you. I don't know if you want to move up or maybe, try and trade that pick or put together some type of package with that pick. But yeah, Skull, that's what I'm talking about, baby. Oh,
no.
yeah.
No.
Thomas, okay. Yeah, Thomas. We'll see what happens there, but it's Brian Thomas, yeah. You can make the argument for him to be that wide receiver 4-ish. For sure. His name is boring as fuck.
We get any more Skull comments in here?
Skull, baby.
You're banned.
No. I got where's Marty at? Marty, Bo Soccer, let's go. We got the Vikings up in here tonight.
No. Well, that doesn't even bother me. I don't think we got any of our
Packer. I don't think we got any of our Packer guys out here tonight.
Doesn't matter. You only need the one that is one of the hosts of the show. That's all you need, baby. That's all. I carry the torch.
No. Oh,
3 straight free.
shout out to Huss and the Wafers League. I won number 3, I think it was. I think whatever the Wafers number 3 was, and I got this cool little this fucking sweater. I'm trying to fucking
That is dope. I actually noticed
boom.
it. I couldn't see it.
Wafer, yeah. So it's Rolling Loud, Wafers, Los Angeles, and then on the back
Oh,
it
that's sick.
says "Take Flight, Los
That's pretty
Angeles."
sick.
Boom. So yeah, shout out to Huss and guys over at Wafers,
That's a dope sweater. I like that.
which I think was Doe. I think was his name. My boy Doe. Who do you guys think is winning the Super Bowl? I'm going Chiefs. I'm a Mahomes guy. I'm a Chiefs guy.
The 49ers are so fucking lucky to even be in this position. Don't get me started. They should have lost 2
they are
weeks ago.
fucking lucky to be in that.
They should have lost last week.
I
or
mean,
a couple days ago.
that IU catch should have been a pick. I mean, fucking Campbell with his fucking shenanigans. I mean, I love that he's just fucking wants to go for the kill, but I mean, fuck, man. Like these points against a team like that, like it's like fuck, man. I know you just want to go for the kill, and you look like a genius if you get it, and you look dumb as fuck if you don't. So I mean,
Bagala and I argued about this for an hour and a half yesterday on the goddamn phone, and I just, bro, when you're up 2 scores and you have a chance to go up 3 scores, you take that in that point in the game. I understand he's been doing that all season. I understand, et cetera, et cetera. You go up 3 scores and you play the rest of the game out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm taking Kansas City. I think Kansas City, I think it was 2.5 for San Francisco, 2.5-point favorite. I haven't looked at it. I believe the number went down. A lot of people are buying the Chiefs right now. I think 2 points now. So I think it was down to 1.5. I think it opened up at 2.5. A lot of people bought up the Chiefs. Went down to 1.5, I believe. It's up to 2. 49ers a 2-point favorite. I'm taking Kansas City at this point. But I could see San Francisco winning. It's not like they're not a good team. I'm not trying to say that, but they were ripe for the picking the last couple of games.
Jaden Reed, yeah. Jaden Reed.
My man, Jaden Reed.
AU catch was PI anyways. Was it PI?
So I had asked Bagala about that.
I don't remember
we were talking about
PI,
that. He said they picked up the flag because I saw the flag come out and I was like, oh, it's pass interference anyway. So they're going to get the ball at the 2-yard line, whatever the case was. He said they picked up the flag, so it wouldn't have been pass interference, but I don't remember that exact exchange.
Yeah. Chiefs for 18 against the run. Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to a lot more than just fucking defense here. So it's a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Listen, you can, I don't want to say throw the stats out the window, but man, it's at this point, it's hard to bet against Mahomes. Like it's really hard. And Brock Purdy hasn't been great. Like he hasn't been great. So take that for what you will. If San Francisco wins the game, am I going to be surprised? No. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs.
Votes on sending 102 Higgins and Dell for Tyreek and CMC. For Tyreek and see a Superflex win now roster. Superflex? I can't do this for Superflex. The 102 Higgins and Dell for Tyreek and CMC. No, I can't do that.
I think I'm agreeing with you. As much as Tyreek and CMC are going to do damage for you next season, that 102 is a fucking, you get a boatload for that.
I mean, as much as I love Tyreek and CMC, I don't know if I want to give up all of that with the 102. Like, I'm not giving up the 102 with it. You want to give up Higgins and Dell, I can live with that. But the 102, I think, is just too much because of what that is or what that could be, or the flexibility you might have with that.
it might win you a championship this year, but you're going to be left hanging on the back end.
I mean, if you just got assets to spare, if your team is that good, I mean, I guess, but I don't necessarily love it, Ryan. Purdy's been lucky in the playoffs. Yeah, a few drops in toes, made some big plays, but been damn lucky too. Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, I was I don't want to say Purdy hater, but yeah, I guess you could say kind of I was a Purdy hater. But I just think he is what he is. Like, he's not great, but he's just good enough. Like, and he's smart. Like, he ran the ball a few times. Like, he made a few really big plays, and credit to him for that. But Detroit fucked up like big time. I mean, they stopped running the football. I mean, the turnovers and bad calls and plays, and everything went in the 49ers' favor. So I mean, hats off to the Niners and Purdy. Got to give him the flowers, I guess. But hey, things could have been very different for the 49ers these playoffs.
1,000%. But listen, Bagla and I talked about this, is that sometimes the ball just bounces your way. Like, see that Brandon Ayuk play. Sometimes the fucking football just bounces your way. It's that simple. Are the 49ers a great team? Yeah, they're a great team. They have a lot of great players. They were in that NFC Championship game last year. They're in the Super Bowl now. They're a great team, no doubt about it. But they have not played like a great team. Their defense is a little concerning because Jordan Love had a really good game against them. Aaron Jones ran all over them. And then they were down, they were giving up some chunk plays against Detroit. So that defense for San Francisco is a little bit concerning for me.
True. Man, Lions should have put that shit away. Like, they were up, what, 14, 17, was it?
17 at half.
Like, they had it, and they just literally folded apart. And that Ayuk play was big also, because that brought them within, I think, 7, right?
When Dan Campbell was up 14 and went for it on 4th down instead of going up 3 possessions, that was the turning point in the game.
Yep.
Because San Francisco said, we got him.
Yep.
And they went right down and scored a touchdown.
They shouldn't even went past even y'all, I don't think. Like, y'all should have beat them. Like, they should have been knocked out already. And then we're having a whole different convo about Purdy at that point.
And a whole different convo about Jordan Love.
That's true, too.
So,
that's true.
But listen, I'm not going to say credit to the 49ers because they've been a thorn in my team's side for a long time, but they're a great team. There's no doubt about it. But they could have easily been beaten the last 2 weeks.
Jamie brings up a good point for Ryan here. Like you said, might win you a championship, but if it doesn't, if shit hits the fan, you're ruining the future. So, and that we don't want to do.
For sure.
That we don't want to do. Josh and the Brent Basket Reynolds, that man, 2 big drops, right?
Yep.
He is way better than Jimmy G. He's better than Jimmy G. I'll give him that. I give him that.
I agree.
Yeah, Tom Brady and Brock Purdy. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go that far, but
early on, I mean, Brock Purdy's more athletic than Tom Brady, but
yeah,
in terms of being able to run around and he doesn't have the pocket awareness, but in terms of being able to scramble like we saw against the Lions, Brock Purdy has the edge there. But I don't want to go that far just yet. Do I see Brock Purdy throwing 50 touchdowns? I do not.
But all right, y'all, we're about to hop off of here. Appreciate everybody coming out. We'll see y'all next Tuesday. But yeah.
And we got 2 weeks to the Super Bowl. There's no football next week.
Yeah, no, there's not. There's not. All right, peace, y'all.
You ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother. Show me the money.
Oh, you didn't know? Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. You put my shoes on, you wouldn't last a mile.
Summertime, wintertime, I'm on the grind. Yeah, I got the ring, I'm the champ, I'm the genie of the lamp. This is the gift I was given, so I just live by my hustle.